Hello everyone, and welcome to another Honkai Star Rail lore video. Today, I'll be talking about the history of Belobog and its connection to the Eon of the Preservation, Klapoth. Belobog, also known as Jarilo-VI, is the first planet we visit after joining the Astral Express Crew, so I figured it'd be fun to cover its history now. Also, if you like this video, consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot and I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, let's move right on and get into the video. In modern times, Jarilo-VI is a cold and unforgiving world plagued with an eternal snowstorm. However, it was not always like this, and the planet looked much different before the eternal freeze began. Himiko tells us that according to the databank of the Astral Express, the planet was once a lush and beautiful place. Within the databank, you can also find an entry that talks about the history of Jarilo-VI. Thousands of years ago, there was a conflict on the planet that came to be known as the War of the Gods. This war was fought between the 11 Perun states and the Veles Union Army, and it lasted for years. Eventually though, an early spring changed the fortunes of the war, allowing the Veles to have a complete and total victory. In their celebrations, the people praised the spring war god Jarilo for helping them by writing poems in his honor. Funnily enough, the current name for the planet, Jarilo-VI, may be a mistranslation that included a poetry stanza number. Now, after the conflict ended, Jarilo-VI entered a long period of peace. With this peace, they were quickly able to develop from a hunter-gatherer society to one that could reach outer space. However, the planet's resources couldn't keep up with the rapidly developing civilization, which put the people in jeopardy. Also around this time, a Stellaron would appear on the planet, causing even more trouble. Of course, the Stellaron would soon bring about the Eternal Freeze, but there is more lore from this time period that I want to mention first. You see, the history of this planet is also told mythologically in the in-game book Jarilo, God of Spring and War. This myth involves a similar conflict between Perun and Veles, though this time they are both gods. One year, on the last night of February, Perun's 10th son would be born, and his name was Jarilo. However, Veles would soon steal Jarilo from Perun and take him underground to the Land of Death. While this place may sound ominous, it was actually described as a lush prairie of eternal spring where birds migrated to in the winter. Despite this, Jarilo did not want to stay here and longed to return to the surface. As the god of youth and life, he would go up to the surface at the end of winter and use his powers to bring about spring. After this, he would be welcomed by the goddess of nature and death, Marana. She was Perun's daughter, which also means she was Jarilo's sister. Still, the two would quickly fall in love, and they would marry in the summer. This marriage brought the bountiful harvests of late summer, as well as a temporary peace between Perun and Veles. Unfortunately though, Jarilo was not a faithful husband to Marana. When Marana learned of this, she would kill Jarilo and use his corpse to build a new home. Without her husband, she would become depressed and bring about a cold and bitter winter. At the end of the year, Marana would die as well. However, both Marana and Jarilo would soon be reborn, causing the myth to start all over again. Of course, this is a tale of the seasons, a myth that explains how the cycle came to be. Just like the seasons, the myth would repeat over and over again. That is, until one year where the winter didn't end. In the myth, it is said that the house Marana built collapsed, causing her to become more angry than usual. In her anger, she placed a curse on herself that would stop her from being reborn again. The curse worked, and Jarilo-VI would thereafter be plagued by an endless and unforgiving winter. Over time, this harsh winter would become known as the Eternal Freeze. Snowstorms would sweep across Jarilo-VI, wiping out the short-lived civilization that called the planet home. In reality though, the Eternal Freeze was not caused by Marana's curse, but by the Stellaron that had arrived on the planet. Soon after the Stellaron appeared, the Antimatter Legion would also descend upon the planet and attack. In an act of desperation, Alyssa Rond would make a wish to the Stellaron, asking it to repel the Antimatter Legion. Her wish was granted, and the Stellaron would bring forth an endless snowstorm that permanently froze the invaders. As I said though, the snowstorm would also wipe out the civilization that lived on the planet. However, some people were able to survive within a city known as Belobog, thanks to the blessing of Klapoth, the Aeon of the Preservation. With their blessing, the architects would build a massive wall around the city, protecting the people from the eternal freeze. Quick side note here, there are other groups of architects found on other planets that follow the preservation, including the IPC and Tosta. Anyways, the truth of the Stellaron's role in the disaster would be kept secret, and so the people of Belobog would praise Alyssa Rond as a hero for protecting the city. As such, she became the first Supreme Guardian of Belobog. From then on, the city of Belobog would remain as humanity's last stand against the Eternal Freeze. Due to the state of the planet though, they would lose contact with other worlds, and the name Jarilo-VI would slowly be forgotten over time. Eventually though, we reach the present day, 700 years after the Eternal Freeze began. Centuries later, the storm is still going strong, and temperatures are almost unbearable for life. Despite these terrible conditions though, the city of Belobog still remains, as do the people who call it home. When we arrive on Jarilo-VI, we get to meet the 18th Supreme Guardian of Belobog, Rond. We talk to her about the Stellaron and how we can help stop the Eternal Freeze, and she seems welcoming at first. However, she then labels us as criminals, sending her daughter Rand after us. After a brief chase and fight with Bronya, we are interrupted by Sampo and his smoke grenades. The smoke knocks us out, and we have a dream that shows a young Cocolia being manipulated by the Stellaron. After the dream ends, we wake up in the underworld and make a temporary alliance with Bronya. Soon after, we travel to Rivet Town and the orphanage within it. Here, Bronya learns the truth about her past, that she was an orphan from the underworld who was chosen by the architects and adopted by Cocolia. Knowing this, she begins to question her mother's actions, and wonders why she closed off the underworld in the first place. Anyways, we eventually return to the surface, where Bronya tries to talk with her mother. However, Cocolia wouldn't listen, and would instead bring her to the Stellaron. We would arrive soon after to confront Cocolia, who believed that destroying Belobog would allow her to create a new and better world. Of course, this wasn't true, as the Stellaron was manipulating her into believing these lies. We would then start to fight against Cocolia, and Bronya would side with us as well. However, Cocolia would use the Stellaron to become more powerful, and she would use that power to mortally wound the Trailblazer. When all hope seemed lost though, the Trailblazer was given the blessing of Klapoth, allowing them to walk the path of the preservation and wield the element of fire. With this turn of the tides, Cocolia would soon be defeated, and the fragmentum energy of the Stellaron would overwhelm and kill her. Welt would then seal the Stellaron from the Astral Express, stopping the Eternal Freeze. However, the ecological effects would still remain on the planet for a long time. Despite this, Bronya would take her place as the 19th Supreme Guardian, inspiring her people to fight back against the Fragmentum and help Jarilo-VI heal. And that's it for this brief history of Jarilo-VI. I really love how detailed the lore is about this planet's history, especially the mythology that the people had. It makes the game's universe feel so much more alive, and makes it all the more enjoyable too. I didn't talk much about Klapoth in this video, but I'll likely make a separate video on them later on. I also want to talk about the other Aeons individually in videos, similar to my video on Aha and the Elation. I have plans to talk about Xipe the Harmony and Yaoshi the Abundance in videos soon as well. If you have any other Aeons you'd like me to discuss though, feel free to let me know. I would love to hear what other bits of Star Rail lore you'd like me to cover in the comments below as well though. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.